Go. So actually, let me start from the beginning again. So I'm Mike Wallbacher, the Executive Director of the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education way up in Roxborough. Glad that you're all here. This is Thursday Night Live. It's a new series of programs that we've unveiled this summer as a way of connecting with you virtually, since we can't connect with you in person on the trails at our visitor center. So happy you're all here with us. Really appreciate it. And actually, our organization has done a number of programs across several platforms in the virtual world. So you can join us on Facebook Live events and a number of other things. So hopefully you get our weekly email blast. You can go to our website, schuylkillcenter.org, and sign up for that if you like. We just send once a week an email blast of what's happening, and you'll find out about all of these programs. But Thursday Night Live has covered a number of topics. Last week it was National Moth Week last night. So we talked about moths and climate change, as I mentioned, edible wild plants. We got some great ones coming up in September. Everybody knows about the chat feature. Hope you do. Towards the bottom, look for the button, it should be in the middle, towards the bottom, in the buttons that are down there. So make sure you can chat to everyone or just me if you would like. Generally keep yourself muted as we go through the evening, with the exception of when you want to say something, and we'd love to hear your voice. So you know, these conversations can be challenging on the Zoom platform. So try to keep yourself muted unless you want to talk, in which case you'd want to jump in. But before we really get into the meat of the conversation about the film, since some of you may be new to the Schuylkill Center, I do want to share some thoughts about the Schuylkill Center. So if I can, whoops, you all see my screen? Yay. So tonight's a story of plastic. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I want to get to that. There we go. And as I was mentioning, as some of you were signing on, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about climate change in Philadelphia, presenting specific data about what's happening here. That's Delaware Avenue during a storm a couple of years back. And if you want that data, you can go to our website and you'll see on the homepage a place where you can watch the Zoom conversation from a couple of weeks back. We'd love you to do that. It's important that Philadelphians know what's going to happen here in Philadelphia. The Schuylkill Center, I hope you know, but if you've not been to us or don't know much about us, which is great, welcome. So glad you were here. We've been around since the mid-1960s, more than 50 years, doing environmental education programming in the city for people around the region, located way up in Upper Roxborough. So this is the bread and butter of our programming, are introducing kids and families and school groups to nature and the natural world. We operate our own preschool, nature preschool, which immerses 3, 4, 5-year-olds in the outdoors. They spend the lion's share of their day. We're actually working really hard on our plan for this fall with its unique challenges, but right now we're planning on nature preschoolers being outside with us, which is great. We also operate the only wildlife clinic in the city of Philadelphia. A couple of thousand injured and orphaned sick animals come to us. Something like 150 species have been dealt with in the clinic, including this red-tailed hawk. We also operate, present a very ambitious environmental art program with indoor and outdoor exhibitions. We're hoping in September to have a new show to present to you called Eco Tactics, how artists respond to ecological action. Look for that in the materials that we send out soon. We also offer lots of opportunities for restoration on the property, like helping the Philly Fanatic plant trees on our property. So when we're allowed to have volunteers back, we hope you can come join us for volunteer opportunities. We're also a membership-based organization. Would love your membership. Members receive exclusive notice of programs, discounts. We have the best bird seed in the city of Philadelphia, by the way. We have great bird seed. I mean, members get discounts on that. We also talked about in the climate change conversation about a June 3rd derecho. Derecho is a special kind of storm that we've only recently been seeing bigger than we used to. It's kind of a straight ahead, almost sideways tornado, and it just rolled through our pine grove and snapped about 20 different trees. It was horrible. So we've begun a small campaign for a fund to help us restore the pine grove, and we're looking for support for that. This is a huge project that's going to take a lot of work And the Pine Grove is the most beloved part of our property, which is really sad. So it's these beautiful pine trees that people love to go in and sit under, and it's been really hit hard. We're actually going to take Thursday Night Live off for the month of August to take a little break and recoup, and then come back to you in September with some additional programs. One of the first ones in early September is the Bat COVID connection. So there's strong possibility, well, most scientists agree that COVID jumped from some kind of wild animal in China into a marketplace where wildlife is sold as meat. So that, there may have been an intermediate animal that it jumped from, but bats are on everyone's short list because coronaviruses, that family of viruses, are really common in bats. So we have Deanne Reeder is going to be our special guest. She's a Bucknell University professor who specializes in bats. This, by the way, is a hammerhead bat that she is holding right here in Africa. So she researches bats, and she's gotten money from the federal government to look at the connection between coronaviruses and bats. So these bats have coronaviruses like in their guts and in their systems, and she just happens to have stored all these guts of all these exotic bats. So she's going to go back into them and look for coronaviruses and get a sense of why does the coronavirus not impact these bats. So bats may have been the cause of COVID-19, but bats, oddly enough, might also be the cure. So look for that coming up in September. But tonight we're going to be talking about plastic, a really important issue. I'm glad you're all here. I thought it was a really well-made movie. First run movie, so just out. They couldn't release it in movie theaters, so they thought, let's go straight to people. So they approached a number of environmental organizations. Happy that we were on the list. And I jumped at the opportunity to talk about it all with you. So I hope you had a chance to look at the movie. We'll get into that. But if you might know the people who did the story of plastic are the same people who do the story of stuff. Some of you might have bumped into this. So the story of stuff began as an online animated movie, short online animated movie about the stuff that all of us consume. And it was so popular, it spawned a whole series. And apparently there's 8 of these animations that have been seen by 50 million people on the web at this point. It became a book, of course, it was so popular. And then this is their first feature-length documentary from the people who brought you the story of stuff. So that's kind of where this comes from. So, so I want to thank you for joining us, because this is not one of the happier topics that we talk about. It's fun to talk about moths, a little harder to talk about issues like climate change, for example, and plastics. So I'm glad that you're here. It's a very important topic, and I think for me it's a very important movie. And I want to begin talking about this, but actually, before I get into that, even here's something else I want to pass along to you. The link that we gave you to watch this movie expires tomorrow at 11:30 at night. So we've got like 28 more hours. So if you want to pass that along to any friends or so, we do have more views allowed. I just checked in with the website. So if there's anybody you know who might want to see this movie in the next 28 hours, feel free to pass it on to your friends. Because after tomorrow, 11:30 at night, it evaporates. All right. And then after this conversation today, I'll be sending you an evaluation form on behalf of the producers of the movie. They'd like to know what people thought of it. So I'll be sending everybody who registered a link to the online evaluation form that they say takes 2 minutes. You decide if you'd like to do that or not. They're looking for feedback. Happy to offer you that link as we go. All right. So imagine tonight is something like a book club conversation. Instead of a book, it's a movie. And instead of us sitting in my living room with a glass of wine, you're sitting in your home. We're doing this over Zoom. I hope you have a glass of wine to talk about this. I hope you don't have a plastic bottle of water next to you. We'll talk about that as well. But to actually begin, what I want to do is sort of to walk slowly into this conversation with you is begin with a poll. I got a poll with 2 different questions for you. So hopefully you're all seeing this. The EPA says that plastics make up what % of the municipal solid waste stream. So all of us throw away a lot of stuff. And in that stuff, what percent of it is plastic? So is it 27%? Is it 14.6%? Or is it 12.7%? So how much of what you throw away is plastic? So start making some guesses. 27%, 14.6%, or 12.7%. Don't be shy, jump on the poll. You get extra credit and bonus points if you do the poll. There we go. And then the second question, I'll read it while you're still figuring this out. In 1990, according to the EPA, the average American tossed out about 4.5 pounds of trash. In 2013, that number was 2.68 pounds, 4.4 pounds, 4.74 pounds. 2.6, 4.4, 4.7. Oh, don't be shy. Just jump in and take a poll. There we go. Good. Oh, good, good, good. This is great. Now, I don't think you can see the results as I can, so I'm seeing the results change as you take the numbers. So 21 of us, that's awesome, have voted in the first poll, and more than 3/4 of us have said 27% of what we throw away is in municipal solid waste is plastic. And interestingly enough, that's not it. 27%, the plurality, so the most by portion of the trash that we throw out is still paper. Paper's always been the dominant thing that municipalities pick up. So 27% of the solid waste stream in cities like Philadelphia is paper. 14.6, that's second guess, 14.6% is food waste, which is much of it is compostable, and 12.7 at the bottom. So plastics have always been surprisingly down towards the bottom of what people throw away, 12.7%. In part why they do it by volume or weight. We throw away a lot of it, but it's so light, so it's never much by weight, and it crushes so much, so it's never much by volume. So only 12.7% of what we throw away is plastic, amazingly enough. And then in 1990, the average American threw out 4.57, 4.5 pounds of trash. In 2013, the number was. And again, that's average American per household. So if you've got 2, 3, 4 people in a house, multiply it, and you get roughly what comes out of a typical household. 2.68 is one guess, 4.4, and you're spread pretty quickly, pretty much around, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Again, 3/4 said 4.74. A little more. It turns out happily that it's the middle one, 4.4 pounds, so it's a little less. 2.68 is what we used to throw away in 1960, believe it or not. So from 1960, and then about around 1980-ish, it snuck up to 4 pounds, and it's always been between 4 and 5 for many, many years. For 30, 40 years, we've been between 4 and 5 pounds. 4.4 is what we threw away, is what we throw away now. 4.4 pounds in 2013, I'm sorry. By the way, 2013 is the most recent number EPA has data for. EPA has not updated the website in recent years on how much trash we throw away. So, and 3/4 of us said 4.74. That's the number from 2000. So it's come down since 2000. So we are a little better since the year 2000, but we can do a little bit more. So paper is still most of what we toss. There we go. I think you can see the results now. There we are. I'm learning how to do Zoom. Okay. So there's a couple of background things I thought you might be interested in knowing. So to begin the conversation, if you wouldn't mind putting something in chat for me so we can all see it and chat to everyone. And what I'd love for you to do is something you might have learned while watching the movie. What's one thing that you might have learned while you were watching the movie? And I'm going to write that I learned more about sachets. I actually never knew much about those sachets. Sachets. I never knew the sachets thing was as bad as it is. Forgive my mistyping. I also learned that there's 5 of those plastic gyres in the ocean. I always assumed that there was one big one. Turns out there's 5 different ones, which is incredibly depressing. Eileen, your question is in what time frame? So I guess in watching this movie. So what did you learn from this movie? Cheryl's here says, uses too much plastic. I think all of us do. The pipeline is being built to manufacture plastic. Yeah, we'll talk about that. That was a surprise to me. Taxpayers pay the oil companies to make plastic. Subsidies are doing that. Plastics come from petroleum. There we go. That's really important to know. Yep.
Mental frustrations. DuPont is there.
Jenny, you want to mute yourself, Jenny? Would you mind? And now I'm going to give you a chance to unmute yourself. Oh, your question, got it, Eileen. So anybody brave enough to sort of begin to talk to the rest of the group about what was your impression of the movie? What did you like about it? What did you not? What was surprising? What was not? Did you think it was well made? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about the movie. Anybody want to jump in and start us off? We need somebody brave and fearless who will kick us off.
I can say that I was sick to my stomach.
Ah.
I only got to 55 minutes in when I started this Zoom with you guys. So I have to go back and finish watching it.
Yeah.
But I was sick to my stomach. I mean, it really tore me apart inside. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the end, if they give any kind of suggestions of where we can go from here.
Yeah.
But that's all I really want to say at this point.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody want to respond to Lisa that they might have felt the same way and maybe the end helped them a little bit? Did the end not help you a little bit?
The end to me seemed as though it's Mission Impossible just about. You would have to be able to get all of those companies to take responsibility for their role in what's going on. If that happens, then like they said, then it will cycle itself out because they don't want to pay that kind of money. But in the meantime, they use recycling, and I think I just wrote that it's like a tactic that they're using to keep you away from the real problem. You think you're doing something to benefit everything, but if the plastics are all mixed and they're all different and some can be recycled and some can't, why are we throwing them all together in the same bins? We should be recycling in a more responsible way.
Right. And that was kind of the horror of the movie is, that somebody has to sort the number one from the number two, and you don't think that you just, when you see an image of who's doing the sorting, that's when you get sick to your stomach. You're right, Lisa.
Children were playing in that stuff. I mean, it was awful.
Cheryl, did you watch it all the way to the end?
I did.
Did you feel any better when it ended?
My husband fell asleep on it, but I watched it to the end. I didn't really feel better at the end because it seemed like I said, Mission Impossible trying to accomplish that. And then to think that they showed it happening in Pennsylvania. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. It was happening in Columbus, Ohio. It was very depressing, actually, and made me think I need to be more responsible about my plastic use. Because
Yeah.
I've never really even thought about the fact that some of them are like combined into other things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that in a bit too, but I know they showed the famous public service announcement, maybe one of the most famous ones of all time,
I know.
of, right, the Native American chief, who I believe was a Lebanese American actor, by the way.
Okay.
Anyway, right, and that's the famous 1970s commercial. And so there was a lot of conversation about litter, but never the conversation of source reduction, of let's stop making this stuff that becomes litter. And so they mentioned Keep America Beautiful in the movie. And I know back in the 70s, there was a state representative in Pennsylvania who doggedly every year at Earth Day would introduce a bottle bill to reuse glass bottles. So you bring them back to the store and they would get washed out and reused. Which is a way more efficient way of taking care of the solid waste. But Keep America Beautiful never supported that. They were essentially funded by corporations who were happy to make sure that we recycled, but wanted to produce aluminum cans and plastic
But
bottles.
it was also, what was also depressing to me was how it was being spread to other countries
Yes,
that weren't using plastic. Countries like I think it was India or the
right.
Philippines, where they were having their food out in like bins, grains and stuff, and you bring a bag and fill the bag up and take it back. Or one guy said he'd bring a bottle and fill it up with oil to use. Now they're also getting the plastic pieces and all of the hype that goes with using plastic instead of glass and
Yep.
metal. So that was different. And now they're going after Africa too.
Right.
Wow.
So there's two people in the chat who weren't sure how to see the movie, and I'm sorry that we didn't make that connection for you. So when you're registered for the event, you should have gotten the link to the movie, which you watch online. So it's a 90-minute movie. So the idea was to watch it and come tonight. We'll chat about it. So that link is still, hopefully, if you look at the registration materials you got from us, you can see that link. Anybody else want to comment or jump into things that Lisa and Cheryl have been saying about, especially how you felt at the end?
I feel like one sort of hopeful part of the movie was seeing the zero waste. I forget which country it was that was, or I forget where it was where these zero waste policies were being sort of put into place, but
Yeah,
seemed like it was having an impact.
yeah. No, that was great. Actually, I'm going to share my screen again and show you something else. Escape that. Come on. Let me try this. My computer's not cooperating with me. There we are. My computer was stuck. Here we go. So on the screen now is the City of Philadelphia's website. They have a Clean PHL website, paving the way toward a zero waste Philadelphia. So zero waste has made it to the City of Philadelphia. Why zero waste? Each year, Philadelphia disposes of nearly 1.5 million tons of residential and commercial waste. 1 ton for every resident. How about that? But then in green, you can see across there, Philadelphia's long-term zero waste goal is to fully eliminate the use of landfills and conventional incinerators by 2035. That's aggressive. That's pretty cool. But I thought you'd like to know about that. So yeah, the zero waste movement's been happening worldwide, and
So
it's
why?
happening here in Philadelphia. Yeah.
I was just on a call last night. Are you guys aware of the Wissahickon in Germantown and Roberts at the SEPTA plant? They're planning on piping, tracking in fracking gas. And we've been fighting it for, I don't know, 5 years now. And Mayor Kenny is on board with it. So if they're showing this, why is Mayor Kenny so on board with doing that. That doesn't, it's like a contradiction.
That sometimes happens in city government. Wait, so what, Lisa, what's happening again? Tell me that again.
At the, right across from the Crop Center, are you familiar with Wissahickon and Roberts in Southwest Germantown, Nicetown?
Okay, yep.
So there's a SEPTA plant there.
Or SEPTA, got it, yep.
It's the SEPTA bus thing, and they're planning on bringing liquid gas from fracking in Pennsylvania there. And they're supposedly using it for, for cheaper gas for SEPTA.
Right.
But we don't believe it. There's the chances, just like the movie showed, of
Understood. All right.
fire, I can't say it, but you know what I'm saying, and causing pollution in an already area that has one of the highest pollution rates for
Right.
asthma in children. And he's the main obstacle right now for the appeals.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
so they show that, and it's like such a contradiction.
I understand. I think that there's some what argument, and I don't want to advocate on behalf of the mayor because I don't know all the details, but there are some who say that burning natural gas is better than burning diesel, so it could be cleaner.
It's definitely better than diesel.
So
What
yeah.
about solar?
Right.
What?
Right.
There's so many other opportunities. You
Right.
just saw from the movie how
Right.
bad that is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The big conversation with natural gas is it a bridge to solar, wind, etc., or is it an end in itself? And I think it is a fossil fuel. I think the age of fossil fuels is clearly coming to an end. The question is it happening fast enough? Not for many people, but
They're going to do a contract, I think, for 20 years.
Right.
So it's like, it's not like a small contract.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm done. I don't want to hijack it. But
No, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate
that brought that up.
It's
for
good
me
to know.
when you just showed that slide.
Yeah, and look, President Obama was light years ahead of presidents before him on climate change, but even he didn't do everything he could have done on climate change. No politician bats 1,000. But I appreciate you bringing this up. Ed mentions the movie talked about China not taking our plastic waste. I think the sidebar I want to offer on that is that when you saw the gentleman from California, the man with the hard hat and the reflective vest, pulling the different plastics out and showing you that you can't recycle this, you can't recycle that, you can't recycle this. So what we were sending to Asia was our really bad efforts at trying to recycle plastic. So we just sent over a mishmash, and China ultimately said, we're not going to take this anymore. Which I think is actually to their credit at some level, but it really messed up municipal recycling without question, since there was no place to bring it to. Joan, you've got your hand raised. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I haven't seen the movie. I thought this event was going to be to see the movie, and I don't know where to watch the movie. The only link I have is to this conversation.
I'm so sorry. So when you're registered,
I didn't get a link.
You didn't get a link. I am so sorry. So we'll make sure you get a link.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So spoiler alert, the movie's hard.
Yeah, I know. I gathered. But I got my wine, so I'm okay.
There you go. Kim recommends A Plastic Ocean on Netflix. Yeah, it's probably equally hard to get through that one as it is to get through this. The ocean piece of this is really horrifying too, that there may be more plastics in the ocean than fish by the year 2050. That's really hard to stomach. Elizabeth, you can watch the link anytime. You can go back any number of times. No problem. Kenneth, my wife and I agree that sometimes the movement from countries back and forth to America was puzzling and confusing. Yeah, I like the global reach of the movie. It was expansive that way. I really appreciated that. Also, the graphics were sometimes written over by subtitles to the detriment of the film's design. That's true. These were minor details. A good aspect was the awareness that this is a global problem. Yep. Right, and people are saying it's difficult to watch, but necessary. By the way, anyone know what happened to Philadelphia's plastic bag ban? Do y'all know where that went? Anybody know, want to offer to the rest of the group? We can crowdsource the.
Probably nowhere.
Yeah, I was going to say nowhere because they stopped asking plastic or paper.
Yeah, it was supposed to go into effect earlier this year, correct? So we actually banned plastic shopping bags, much to the chagrin of lots of people. But anyway, it was fought, but it was a score. And apparently with COVID, the mayor thought that it was too hard for businesses to do that on top of everything else that was happening. And so actually it was put off until January of next year. So there still is a ban, but it's not into effect until January 2021. Anybody know something better or different than that? So here's a question for you all. Imagine a world without single-use plastics. What does that world look like? And what do we do? So what does stuff come in? What do y'all think? Would you support that?
I'd just say that I would support it, but how much more is it going to cost people to buy food that comes in aluminum or glass? You've already got people who have to choose between food and medicine or food and heat. So
Right.
for those people, it's going to be more difficult if we go to no single-use plastic.
Yeah.
But we used to do that before. Before plastic was so prevalent, we used paper bags. The flour and the sugar came in paper. I don't remember a whole lot of plastic bags back in the old days when I was younger. So, I think we could just go back. I think people have gotten accustomed to it. And when you get accustomed to something, you think life wouldn't go on if you didn't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or it would be too hard. But once you start doing it, I think it would get easy again.
Well,
Maybe
you
a little inconvenient, but easy. Like going to Sam's Club and having to bring your own bag.
All right. Joan?
big deal. You can
Yeah.
bring tote bags. You can put your veggies and things into paper bags. You know, the only thing you really need plastic bags for keeping things fresh for a long time in the fridge or something. But aside from that, there are a lot of different, you know, we can live without plastic bags, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to add that there's probably would be a lot of resistance from the food industry.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the reasons why they like the plastic is because they can have their branding, you know, as opposed to things in nondescript, generic type packaging. They don't want that. So that would be another issue to deal with.
But they
Right.
could still put their names on it. I was shocked at how many Nestle
Don't feel
products
like
were.
that, though.
I
Yeah.
was surprised at how many Nestle products were in those landfills in those other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, I didn't know Nestle was polluting that much.
Yeah, the movie is done in connection with a group called Break Free from Plastic, which is an international nonprofit. And I think some of the people from Break Free were some of the featured speakers in the movie. So that there was a partnership between the story of stuff and Break Free from Plastic. And so if you go to their website, which is easy to Google and find, you can actually see that, first of all, July was Break Free from Plastic month. So there's a whole month of activity. So I think much of the world there was focus on plastics. I didn't realize that until too late that was a good connection for us. But anyway, so that didn't get a lot of play in local press that I could see. But also in their if you look at their website, they have a rotation of photographs and images at on the homepage, and one of them is who they say the big three, I guess, polluters of plastic waste that when you do a collection, number one is Coke, and do a collection and sort them by brand. Coke was number one, Nestle was number two, and PepsiCo was number three. So. Yeah, Pepsi's right up there.
How do you know what are the good plastics? I mean, that's something that people would need to know to be able to make intelligent decisions on what they're going to buy.
Yeah. I was disappointed in the whole confusion about biodegradable plastic and bioplastic.
Exactly.
And I guess for me, I had this fantasy. The movie confused me about this, and I do want to go and figure this out a little deeper. But I know that we need clear definitions about what those terms mean. So if you make something out of cornstarch and it looks like plastic, but it doesn't last, thousands of years, does that work? Is that fine? Or was it that they could put other kinds of non-biodegradable things into it and call it bioplastic? So I wasn't sure what the exact issue was, and I want to figure that out. But that was my hope that we could do that. A couple of people are pointing out that it's going to be hard to have no plastic whatsoever. So you can see all of that happening in chat.
Why?
Yep.
Why don't we? Did the movie talk about reuse? Because they talked about good plastic and bad plastic. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. There's no need at all to use just one, disposable plastic. And there's so many other ways that we can. It's part of an education thing. Can you imagine if they showed that in a school to children?
Yeah.
How much it would make a difference in their lives, and they can teach their adults. Does anybody shop at Weaver's Way Co-op?
Oh, lots of people do, but yeah, yep.
So, they're a model. We can do a lot of, and they're still using plastic, but at least it's a movement towards, at least cutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had those old plastic bags, the green ones, that actually do biodegrade, because sometimes they biodegrade in the drawer. But they were plastic and they kept things fresh, which is what you want plastic for. And now they moved to those soft green things, which are great for putting your, vegetables in and take them home, but they don't keep anything fresh. So I just throw them out. I'm trying not to use them at all, because I don't see that they have any use aside from carting home your vegetables.
Well, you can use them for composting if you compost, or
I'm sure they take forever to break down, though.
Right. Well, I think
your
Lisa,
trash cans.
Lisa, I want to come back to your more important, the bigger point you made a second ago, which is that, I think in my mind, what you were saying was akin to what that the gentleman in the recycling center, the ecology center in California, was saying, that we can't recycle our way out of this problem.
No.
That we have to reduce and reuse. That's the key for moving forward. And I don't know if reduce means you buy the soda bottle and make a birdhouse out of it, or reuse.
Artwork.
I don't think that's that, because you can't reuse enough things that way.
Right.
Right.
No, but you can try to get them to go back to glass and then reuse the glass, which is what we used to do.
Yep.
We used to have a 2-cent deposit, and kids would run around and collect all the bottles and take it back to the store and get a few pennies.
Right.
Glass is much safer.
Yeah. So, and those glass bottles were used hundreds of times. So that not just saves on the product. Now, look, glass is made from sand, and sand is not going to disappear so much. So I think whatever. But what you do when you reuse that bottle of glass, you are saving a ton of water, and you are saving a ton of energy. So actually, I think a recycled container uses like 1/10 of the energy and 1/10 of the water of making a new product. So you've got all these upsides. But the most efficient way was the old reusable beer bottle that my dad drank in the 1960s, for example. Soda, the milkman. There's
Right.
people talking about the milk delivery in the chat thread.
And people used to come around and refill your seltzer bottles.
Yep. And then the next best way is like the aluminum can, which can become an aluminum can, which can become an aluminum can, which can become, so that's a great circle. Remember, there was that great graphic in the movie about the straight lines needing to reconnect and be circles. But what we've done with plastic recycling is we essentially downcycle. But the best plastic recycling actually is like one more use. So you take all the plastics, melt them down, you make plastic lumber, which then can't be recycled. or it becomes a down vest. All those soda containers become a down vest, which is kind of nice, but that can't be recycled. So you get one more use out of it, which is great in a way, but it's not the classic. It's not the classic
But a
recycling.
down vest could last 100, 200 years. You can pass it on. Who knows, you know, to
Yeah, not the way we make those plastic vests. It'll last 100 years, but I don't think.
or it can last like 50 years. My clothes been recycled, you know.
Yep.
Anyway, it's better.
Lots of good stuff coming up in the chat. Students for Zero Waste from NAAEE, the National Association for Environmental. Oh, I'm North American Association for Environmental Education. There we go. So Students for Zero Waste Week. It still confuses me, says Nikki, how we managed to invent something that we had little idea how to get rid of. Right, because the requirement wasn't that you have to get rid of it if you make it, you're responsible for getting rid of it. We didn't install that requirement, and so here we are. In the movie, it says it takes about 1,000 years to get rid of plastic. Yeah, it does. It takes a long time. Yeah. So, go back to chat, everybody. And if there's something the movie's inspired you to do, if there's one next thing, or if there's one thing you've already done, I'd like to see what some of your actions are that you've all taken to reduce plastics in your life. Because maybe some of us will get some new ideas about some of those. Meals from Weaver's Way, yeah. Bring your own recycled container, yeah. I've never bought plastic trash bags in my entire adult life. So I actually use, and I go when I shop, I get paper bags, and I use the paper bags for trash. It can sometimes be a little messier and doesn't always work, but on the whole, I've saved who knows how many plastic garbage bags. Yeah, bring your own bags. Flow water had a recycled bottle with paper and metal. Okay. Or recycled bottle with paper. Right. So good. Buying a bottle that's itself is recyclable. Elizabeth brings her coffee mug to Wawa. Good. Definitely reuse. Yeah, we have to do a lot more reusing. Anybody inspired to do anything political? Any action you want to take? Anybody you want to write to? Anybody you want to phone call? Anything you want to do there? I'm curious about your thoughts on that. Actually, I think the irony of my household solid waste is because we compost and we recycle everything that the municipality asks us to recycle. So when I look at my kitchen in the trash, that's in my brown paper bag, it's mostly plastic. It's a lot of those films that you throw away that are not recyclable. So, anybody want to offer anything that they're inspired to do from the movie?
Well, it is all political. I mean, if we don't get our leaders behind us to ban plastics and things like that, it's not going to happen. But now we're living in la la land, so I'm not sure that that's possible right now. Vote would be a good thing.
Right. Right. So if we're all following chat, there's good stuff in chat right now. Yep. Composting is huge. Actually, remember the number 2 item in coming out of our kitchen is food waste. So if we're recycling that, that's at least, or composting that, that's at least not going into the incinerator or the landfill. I hope you know if your trash is incinerated or landfilled. I hope you know that piece of it.
They used to have, when I first moved to Philly,
Yeah.
they used to have us with these little metal
Big buckets.
garbage buckets, and the pig farmers would come around and collect those.
Big buckets.
Take that, it was the trash, it was the garbage buckets.
And they
stopped coming.
They stopped coming.
Yeah.
We have to bring pig farming back.
Well,
Actually,
Well,
they're
I think the pig farmers didn't even think it was cost effective for them to do that.
Right.
maybe not, but
But I put the pig
That's
bucket out every Monday. It was there.
That's really,
That's
is a guy composting, picking up people's compost.
may I point out that that's when there were pig farms in South Jersey instead of development?
right. Right,
And
right,
also
right.
out on Route 73, they had the pig farmers.
I once talked to somebody about 10 years ago who remembers seeing sheep being herded down City Line Avenue, which I can't. So in the lifetime of someone I talked to, there were sheep on City Avenue,
Wow.
which is kind of cool. Let's pivot. Anybody want to talk about fracking and the surprising role Pennsylvania played in the movie?
Oh.
Yeah.
Anybody else surprised to see Pennsylvania in the center of the movie?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Catherine?
No, oh no, I'm just saying it was so sad.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't want the fracking initially
Right.
because it was ruining their water and their whole quality of life. But one of the things that the movie pointed out was the political support that these industries have. I don't know if we can like make a list of who is really voting for all of these policies and circulate it and like just out them and get them out of office. But you know, that's probably available, right? Should be a list out
Absolutely.
there like that already.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need people that are willing to support change for the environment for the better.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of nonprofits in Pennsylvania working on the fracking issue. But of course, fracking has been moving ahead. So yeah, the movie recommended stopping fossil fuel subsidies. So, right, especially if fossil fuel subsidies are helping fuel the plastic, all those plastics. Yep. Anybody else who hasn't talked yet, perhaps want to jump in and say anything about what they thought about the movie, what they shared? Want to share something for us? Drew knows that we have to keep up the political pressure on the plastic grocery bag ban. Yeah, feel free to contact your your city councilman if you live in the city of Philadelphia, especially. And I think for some of the activists who worked on this, they saw that as kind of the first step in moving towards reduction in other plastics in the city of Philadelphia. So it'll be interesting to see. And actually, the plastic bag movement is picking up across. I think there are some places, whole countries are banning plastic bags in some parts of the world. Did New York City just do it, or I think maybe even all of New York State may have just done it. Anybody know that? No, that's huge. So I think the plastic bag is kind of the tip of the iceberg, which maybe gets to other things happening as well.
Well, if stores would put out paper bags or
Yeah.
some alternative to bagging your fruits and your vegetables, that would be helpful.
Yep. Kenneth notes that he has read Amity and Prosperity by a local woman. Tells a lot about that's a book, Kenneth? Amity and Prosperity? Great to have a new book to recommend. Good, thank you, Kenneth. Lisa states the obvious: until you get money out of politics, it won't make a big difference. I think we all know that. But worth saying. What haven't we talked about with the movie that you'd like to? I will confess to never connecting plastics to climate change before this movie, which is more obvious than I expected, and I'm surprised that I missed it all these years. Was that new for anybody else? Lisa gets a thumbs up. And I guess to get political, the companies that have been stalling on climate change are the same ones that make the chemicals out of the raw materials for plastics. So, ooh, we got some good stuff in chat. Oh, Margaret wonders about the Zero Waste Act in Congress. Yeah, don't know. And actually, zero waste ties into the Green New Deal, which we'll see if this gets discussed much. But the Green New Deal is sort of attempting to marry climate change with other issues too, like economic justice, racial justice. So it's a sort of a blending at the intersection of all these issues. So I think the Green New Deal gets sort of cartoonized into, I'm not sure anybody really knows what it is. So I was hoping to put together a Zoom conversation later in the fall about the Green New Deal, especially as we get towards Election Day. So you, as a consumer of information, might know exactly what the Green New Deal is and is not. So instead of the cartoon version, what is it really saying? But I would bet that zero waste is a key piece of anything that's a Green New Deal. And it'll be interesting to see if this zero waste movement really catches on, especially here in Philadelphia. Oh, Elizabeth wasn't clear on whether plastic manufacturing is a byproduct of natural gas fracking or is some fracking going on solely for plastic production. So I think that you can use the fracked gas for plastics if you choose to. So not all of it is. If anybody else wants to chime in and knows differently, that would be great. But at least a Mariner East pipeline that is coming through Philadelphia. That apparently the way that they're setting up the premise there is that there's a contract to send that fracked gas to Scotland, where it's going to make plastics. That was the surprise. Yeah. I did not understand that. I thought that fracking had to do with energy independence. I didn't realize it had to do with making plastics. But then you also saw in the movie that there was fear among the petrochemical companies that as we get more efficient, as we move away from fossil fuels, that they'll have a product nobody wants. So what else can we do with it? Let's make plastics. So they're ramping up plastics to hedge their bets on the ramping down of fossil fuels and automobiles and houses. Right? So sad that using plastics for fuel is just as problematic because there's too much of it. Yes. We typically go an hour, so I'm happy to talk for 5 more minutes. I'll make sure that anybody who doesn't have the link gets it. I am Mike at schuylkillcenter.org, Mike at schuylkillcenter.org. Email me and I'll send you the link right away.
Good
Margaret,
to see
thanks
you
for all that
again,
good.
Mike.
What's that?
I said it's good to see you again.
Cheryl, always good to see you. I really appreciate it. Say hi to Al. Tell him don't fall asleep next time you watch a good movie.
I tried. I really tried. All right, I have to leave.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I'd love to hear a few more thoughts from anybody about the movie.
Did the movie talk about polyester and the getting out of the clothing when you wash it, getting into the water supply and into the environment?
Let's see. In my memory, somebody can maybe help me out. I'm not sure they mentioned polyester much by name, but they mentioned that the fabrics, when they get washed, the plastic becomes smaller and smaller and end up getting in your water and other places, right?
Right.
So the water actually ends up in places you don't want it, like inside us. I'm sorry, the plastics ends up in places we don't want it, like inside us.
Right,
So,
and people are selling little balls or things that you can put in your washing machine to supposedly catch that stuff, but it's not clear that they work. I mean, I don't know how to even research whether that really works.
Right. Right.
I think they were saying that when they wash the plastics and as they're cutting it and breaking it up, that's when what are they doing with the water that is being used to wash it?
That too.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yeah, so that these issues are all interconnected so that there's a huge water pollution component to the plastic issue on top of just the
So-
solid waste component.
So
Yeah.
buy natural fabrics when possible.
Yeah. And of course, cotton is one of the most pesticided products.
I know. There's always
Organic cotton
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Just wish there was a way, says Jenny, to make plastic cost a lot more. It would lessen the use. Right. And so there was some concern by some people in the conversation that we would make some products too expensive. But if the disposal of the product, if that price is built into the making of the product, people will tend to use less of it. And that's actually the carbon tax that's been talked about a lot in climate change. Like if you tax carbon, so yes, you can buy a car that gets 20 miles to the gallon. You'll just pay more for a carbon tax. If you use a car that gets 60 miles to the gallon, you're going to pay a lot less. So you incentivize things like, efficiencies, hyper efficiencies. So if we had done that, 20, 30, 40 years ago, cars could be getting 60, 70 miles to the gallon right now. We chose not to do that. And here we are. Yeah. Joan says the plastic industrial complex. I don't know, some of you probably know that in the geologic eras, there's a new name for the era in which we live, the Anthropocene, the time that that people live in. So that there's a sense that in the geological record, that like a million years from now, when you look back on this time, you will see in layers of rock the impact of humanity. And one of the things you will see is like that thin layer of plastic. So I was holding out that they would name this time the Plasticine. So I feel like that should be the name of where we live right now. We're living in the Plasticine era. And I think that's one of the challenges ahead, is to sort of break free from plastic, as the movie says, and try to find additional things, additional ways to do that. So of course, all of us need to do our own things, but then we need to put pressure on the systems that govern us, that we support, to make the sort of institutional change. And I think institutional change is kind of the theme of the moment right now. We're talking about right now in lots of different sectors. So anybody want to type one more thought in the chat or say one more thing to the rest of us? I'm so glad you took 90 minutes to watch a really hard movie. And then on top of that to come in. Lucy, go ahead.
I typed something into the chat, but I didn't know how to send it off. You didn't see it. So is there a thing you have to click on to send it? I can say it now out loud, but
Enter.
Say it now. Please say it now. Go ahead.
enter. Oh gosh, I'm such a dick.
I think.
I was wondering if any of you are familiar with Echo Bricks.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know how long they've been around, but maybe since early in the 2000s. You take like a plastic bottle and you stuff it with anything that is not recyclable other than paper and aluminum foil, all kinds of plastic, hard, soft, you name it. And that's not recyclable. And these bricks, you pack them very, very tightly. You push it down with a, like a screwdriver, so it's really tight. And they're like a brick. And they're actually used all over the world for building.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that.
And other kinds of structural things. Yeah. And I've been doing it the last few months. I started doing it. A friend of mine told me about it. I wish I could tell you the name of the person who, there's a woman on Mount Airy Avenue. I think it's the 400 block west. Anyway, people bring bottles to her, empty drinking bottles, soda and whatever. And people come and pick them up. They're just outside her house in a cooler kind of thing. And you take them home and fill them up with whatever plastic stuff you can't recycle, and then you bring them back and filled to her, and then you take new empty ones.
Huh, it's interesting.
And, they're sent off somewhere, and it's a small little token, but you really feel very virtuous because you're
Right.
getting rid of all this stuff that that won't go to a landfill, and it's actually can be used for some reasonable purpose.
That's great. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you for that. Good. Beth says they made a greenhouse out of plastic bottles at Robbins Park in Upper Dublin. Yep. Silver Lake Nature Center in Bristol has done something similar, and they call it an earth house. Those are all, I think they're incredibly honorable, but again, we make way more plastic soda bottles than we can turn into houses like that. So, but there's other things we need to be doing as well. So I'll make sure, if you want the link, send me an email, mike@schuylkillcenter.org, and I'll get it right to you as soon as we end here. We're going to take the month off from Thursday Night Live in August and come back in September. I mentioned the conversation about bats and COVID. We also have some beekeepers coming to talk about honeybees and some other things happening as well. So I hope you'll tune back in. Yeah, I'm recording this. If you would like a recording of it, you can also email me, and I'll make sure you have the recording of this as well. So I really want to thank you all for both watching the movie, if you're able to do that, and staying for this conversation. Appreciate it. I'll make sure to send the movie to anybody who still wants it. All right. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Come visit us when we're open, which we hope is soon, and hope to see you on a Thursday night in September. Thanks, everybody.
How much is it to get into where you're at? What's it cost?
Oh, we're free.
Oh,
Yeah,
you are?
And the,
we're free.
the grounds are open.
The grounds
correct?
are open. Yeah. So, yep,
Yeah.
the Nature Center is closed, but our grounds are open dawn to dusk. So you park on Hagey's Mill Road, and you can walk in. So come park on Hagey's Mill Road and come for a walk.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.